Pretty good. Markets.
Yes. We don't want to. Yeah, he sent me a nice letter. He's nice.
I talked to a client this morning and he gave us money.
Good afternoon, everybody. We'll call our meeting to order today. Thank you for everyone being here today. It's a great day at Missouri Southern. Got a few announcements to make. First of all, I want to welcome to the board Dr. Benjamin Rosenberg. He was brought into the board, was it the 2nd of January? Is that when you had your confirmation hearing?
Yes.
Yes. So welcome to the board, great group, great university. Also want to congratulate Bill Gibson for being reappointed. Bill couldn't be with us today, but he was reappointed. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank Jim Fleischafer for his years of service to this board. Served on different boards with Bill, with Jim in the past, and he was very helpful to me on this board when I first started. I've got a card here I'm going to pass around, which is a card from the Alpha Sigma Alpha, the Zeta Alpha chapter that they sent to the Board of Governors. So appreciate that. I'll pass that around for everybody to see. And I guess the first order of business that we have today is to take up the minutes of the November 17th meeting. Seems like it's been a long time since we met. I guess it was. So you all have seen those. Is there a motion to approve those minutes? Motion to approve. Governor Haley, is there a second?
Second.
Governor Hirschfeld. Any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Those minutes pass. The first report we have this afternoon is of our treasurer, Ms. Dice.
Thank you and good afternoon. You received in your board packet the financial statements for both November and December for 2017. And as usual, we'll review the most current statement, which is December of 2017, which means we are halfway through the year already. Hard to believe on finances anyway. The cash graph shows the cash balance as of December 31 at $10.4 million, and this is an increase over the prior year of about $240,000. The next statement that we look at is the statement of net position, and we have total assets of $162 million. We have liabilities of $93 million, and this gives us total net assets of $69 million. The next statement is the comparative statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in net position. And we always look at the difference column, comparing the current year to the prior year cumulative balances. We have an increase of $376,000 in operating revenues. For operating expenses, we have an increase of $1.1 million. You can see a couple of those items on there. I wanted to note within the other benefits is the additional payments for the Mosers due to the percentage increase on that. When we look at non-operating revenues, we have a decrease over the prior year of $1.5 million. The current year income before other revenues is showing a decrease of $500,000. Prior year has an increase of 1.7, and this gives us a difference between the 2 years of a decrease of $2.2 million. And then the capital appropriations on the state dollars, you can see the current year has about $800,000 drawn down for the Reynolds-Nixon program compared to the prior year. We do have some additional appropriations to draw down on that as the construction moves along. And I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for Linda?
I just want to thank Linda. I sent her a couple of questions about cash flow, and she answered them for me at this point. Looks like to me all the projections and all the actual numbers are those which we we dealt with when we adopted the budget, so thank you very much, Linda.
You're very welcome.
Any other questions or discussion? Chair would entertain a motion to approve both the November and the December financial report of the treasurer. Governor Franks,
Second.
Governor Flanagan, any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next up is the VP for Business Affairs, Mr. Hughes.
Thank you. We'll look at a couple of construction projects going on campus right now. First of all, Ncaa, that began in earnest last month. They're doing some earthwork currently on the hillside to the south of Reynolds Hall, and they have begun the demolition of a stair tower that's in the southeast corner of Reynolds. That's where the connecting points will be for both buildings. If you recall, that facility will be completed this fall with classes to be held in there a year from now. So we're anxiously waiting that. Second project is the trail project, and what I was hoping would not happen, did happen. We hit another snag in the project. I know some city folks here, which is great. It seems that the individuals from the theater, they were thinking that their parking lot might be used for events on our campus. And Bob was able to get on a conference call and assure them that that would not happen. But what that did is delay the easement or the right-of-way that they were going to sign, so now they're going to have to go and do that. And ultimately, hopefully, that project will begin construction the latter part of the spring with completion late summer, early fall.
Of what year?
I'm not going down there. Anyway, the other topic is budget, which is on everybody's mind. And this is the time of year where you can look at Jeff, and he has not lost all his hair yet. So, but he's knee deep in the process for 19. And as anticipated, we'll be looking at another tight budget year due to the release of the state budget earlier this week. And if you recall, I sent you all some information on Monday regarding that the state budget. Just to put everything in perspective here, for 3 years, in 17, 18, this current year, and 19, with the reductions imposed by the state, the governor, our cash will be reduced by $4.4 million. It makes it very difficult to prepare a budget for 19, which I'm glad it's in Jeff's hands and not mine, so we'll see how that goes. Does anybody have any questions regarding this? And by the way, this is not a crying tale. This is for another reason. But
Any questions, Rob? I want to thank you for the information you sent out on that. A lot of good facts there. I know you asked me why I didn't respond. I guess maybe it was a bit of shock on my part, but I did study it, did go through it. That's very, shall we say, very concerning. Very
and,
concerning.
if you recall, I sent you that information. There was two components to FY19. Is the overall reduction of 10+% from the governor, plus an additional 10% that we can get back with performance funding. And all indications are, just for everybody's benefit, all indications are we will meet all those performance funding measures, but it's not happened yet. So the dust hasn't settled yet, so we're just holding our breath on that one.
So will that portion that's based on performance funding, will that be held back and then those calculated and then released if you have met it? Is that how that will work, or is that a no?
That's the $1 million question.
Okay.
We got a conference call yesterday.
And my understanding is this 4.4 doesn't include that. It assumes we do get that performance funding.
Correct. That is the 4.4 that I mentioned is as if we got all performance.
Exactly, yes. So,
It's our understanding, at least at this point, and we don't have anything official from the state, that if you met all 6, then they'll just start monthly as normal. If not, they'll reduce your amount by whatever that, maybe if you hit 3 out of 6, they reduce it in half. I don't know the formula, but we think we're hopeful. That's That's what we
Yeah.
hope happens. You know, it could wait until the end of the year, and then that doesn't help your cash flow through the year. It hurts us.
Well, like I say, it's very concerning. I know there'll be more news to come certainly as time goes by. And I do appreciate your analysis.
We'll keep you apprised of any new developments as we go along.
Thank you.
Can I do ask one question?
Sure.
I know historically the state has always had a 10% withhold on appropriations. Will that continue in this new methodology as well?
They have had a 3% withhold,
Okay.
and yes, that is in the 4.4 that I mentioned to you.
That is.
That's already taken out. It's
So
net
that's
of the 3%.
included net of that.
Yeah, that's net of that 3%. We never see that 3%.
Is it fair to say at this point, the reason why this is so vague is because there is not a firm policy that you can go to and look at and be sure this is what the state's actions are gonna be?
Correct.
Probably fair to say, but maybe not safe.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a fog out there, and it's TBD.
You know, it makes it challenging when we develop the budget for 19. And most likely, what we did even with this year is we set the budget on the things that we know for sure was gonna happen. And if we get some news that are better than that, then great, we have a little bit of a fluff in there, but we're not really sure at this point what we're gonna do as far as the budget.
You know, that's just about 2/3 of my report.
I know. Sorry.
No, seriously, I think this is, it's the critical issue, but I don't want us to overlook what we've been able to accomplish with a great game in saving expenses. Otherwise, we would be in the position of some of the folks we heard on the conference call yesterday. They're burning furniture. I mean, it's panic time. So I'll say a little bit more about that later, but mostly that's what I was going to talk about
Yeah.
anyway. Thank goodness we have the kind of savings that we've been able to generate, and hopefully we can generate some revenue in other places.
You know, as of this year, we have already lost 2.3, and we're still doing fairly well. And not great, but we're holding our own with the reduction of $2.3 million of cash that would have gone into our bank account. And a lot of it is due to the great game.
Well, go back 5 years ago. Go back to our Christmas break reading assignment you gave us. You remember it well. What if we hadn't taken those steps? What if we were still there? It would be
Burning the furniture.
catastrophic.
Terrible.
So, thank you, Rob. On that light note,
Sorry.
next up is a report of our athletic director. Jerry.
I would like to pass on this one if I could. Thanks, Rob. So, well, I'll give us some information, and much of this is very good. So, I don't normally say much about our programs as far as our sport programs in this. Instead, I normally focus on the other aspects, but I do want to say a few things like regarding our men's basketball. CJ Carr was named the MIAA Basketball Player of the Week again this week for the third time this year, and that is for the 5 weeks in a row. It's been an MIAA, or the MIAA Athlete of the Week has been one of our men's basketball players. So the women's has also done very well. Matter of fact, last week we had all the MIAA Athletes of the Week were Southern athletes. Women's basketball had a big win, obviously, against Emporia. Our track and field programs right now are really excelling. Our men's program is currently ranked 4th in the country. And we also have the farthest throw in the country with a kid from Carthage, Ryan Burns. Bubba is what his name is. He looks like a big Bubba. But, and then also our pole vaulter on the women's side, Emily Presley, she'd hit the vault she had on Saturday, she would have been the highest jump in the country, actually, any Division 1, 2, or 3. So she's doing very well as well. Other sports are kind of just starting to ramp up. You'll see baseball and softball out practicing as well as golf. Regarding other informational things, in the MIAA, we did have our conference meetings 2 weeks ago, and then we also had our conference meetings and the Ncaa meetings a week ago up in Indianapolis. We have a task force on webcasting. I was a member of that, as well as 2 of our staff here at Southern. We did decide to go with pay-per-view versus free-per-view. That was decided at the CEO's meeting. But we did have our minimum standards guide approved, which is basically our webcasting as far as for all of our sports and consistency. We also had officiating committee meeting is really what it was, but a committee meeting in January as well. And with all the budget things going on, there was no approved increases for officials' fees, even though they all requested it. Those were all denied. We don't have the coaches deny that because the coaches feel they're penalized for it, so instead it goes to the administrators. And then the final component of the MIAA as far as that is we've been meeting with the athletic directors and commissioners around the commissioner, and there's going to be a task force to look at the football scheduling regarding options and divisions, end of season conference championship game, non-conference games, protecting the rivalry games, all those things. And that is, there's a task force been designated, a very small task force, and I will be serving on that as well, because we really were a big part of the process of getting that momentum to help change the way our scheduling is currently done, which has not been productive for a lot of the institutions. As far as the Ncaa National Convention, a couple things have come out of that. One is all the financial reports were submitted in January, so those have been turned in. They're basically the equivalent of the EADA report, which is turned in October to the Department of Ed, so that's been completed. We also completed our census earlier this week. And then there were 6 proposals, which is a low number for the Ncaa. All 6 passed. The only thing that's really somewhat controversial is including Mexico in as a member. You could be an institution in Mexico and be a member of Division II. We added that in Canada a few years ago. There's only one institution in Canada that does that, Simon Fraser. But we did look towards there. There's no institutions that are looking to join at this point. There's a lot of criteria that have to be met, but it is expanding the scope of what the Ncaa historically has been, which is the United States only. The last couple things, Student Athlete Advisory Committee. They're working on several projects, including trash pickup day, school supplies drive, and a kids clinic. So those are all taking place in the next month. And then just one thing I want to say about the linebackers. The membership has grown from 277 this year, which is 26 new members, members are not just one person, they're often a family. Tied with that, so we're up 26 from last year, and then we had our linebacker appreciation chili feed on Saturday, which I love doing that. I was gone, I was in the Ncaa meetings, but our steering committee worked on that and several staff members, and that's always well received and appreciated. So that really concludes my report. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Jared? Thank you for your report. Next up is the report of the Executive Vice President. Dr. Hodson couldn't be with us today, so giving his report will be Eric Skaggs.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Hodson is, he and a couple of his foundation board members are on their way back from the AGB conference, and so he's asked me to provide the remarks for the advancement division today. I'm happy to do that. So in the area of fundraising, annual giving increase of 224 gifts was received, amounting to a little over, well, almost $300,000 total dollars raised. Major giving closed 15 gifts of $10,000 or more for the second quarter of this year. And the annual phone-a-thon began on this past Monday, the 22nd. In University Relations and Marketing, URM is busy conducting brand awareness perception survey on the university for a 10-county region in the 4-state area. In partnership with the alumni office, they're also conducting an alumni satisfaction survey for that same region. And the results from both of those surveys will hopefully assist them in developing engagement and communication strategies for the forthcoming year. In alumni relations, just a reminder that the first annual Pride and Purpose Day is, which recognizes the Lion-Hearted and Spirit of Service Awards, is scheduled for February the 10th. And on the admissions side, just an update on the spring 2018 enrollment. So as of this morning, we were at 5,566, which is flat compared to the previous year. Still have some fluctuation that's going to take place. We have the payment deadline, which is on Thursday, the 25th, and then we've got a few more dual credit enrollments that are scheduled to come in. Any questions for me?
Questions for Derek?
It's good, because I probably couldn't answer it. Advancement in the alumni area.
So Derek, you said you had about a 2-minute report. You just about hit it.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Thank you for your report.
We actually gave better numbers on enrollment than I thought you were gonna.
Yes,
Yeah.
I texted Brad, I texted Brad and asked him if I could do that. He said absolutely.
Tell him we appreciate your report more than his.
That's right.
I'll let you tell him.
Next is our report of our co-host and VP for Academic Affairs, Dr. Carson.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you all. Good to see you. In addition to all the things that have been mentioned so far, there are 3 major initiatives that we'll be simultaneously pursuing here in the spring. And so I decided to focus my report really on those 3. I don't know that these are sort of the most compelling things you want to talk about, maybe at your social events, but they're very, very important and very critical and very dynamic. So there are 3 developments on these 3 major initiatives that have occurred since we last gathered in November. The first is in accordance with the statutory deadline. The MDHE did come through at the end of the year, technically January 3rd, with their final recommendations on the gen ed reform in the state of Missouri that is now known as Core 42. Core 42 delineates the hours that students at any 2- and 4-year public institution in Missouri must take, and we must accept as transfer. Again, that is not a problem for us. We want to be very good transfer partners with all other institutions, but where this is going to cause a significant need to modification is in our current gen ed and the degree to which this will apply to our native students. So we are actually, and I think that you'll begin to see academic policy is now also in Nick's report, because it's a lot of what we're going to be doing. Right now our curriculum essentially calls for 9 hours of science. We have to reduce that to 7. And in all, it doesn't sound like a great big deal, but what that basically means is that there are dozens of science courses that have to be redesigned, they have to be reconceptualized, and they have to be put through the process. The process for curriculum change, and I have this laid out for you in the academic policies handout, is any curriculum change starts with the school committee, and then it goes to academic policies, faculty senate, here to board of governors, to MDHE, and to HLC. So obviously going through each of those steps requires some time. We're looking at, as much as 1 year to implement some of these changes. And then all that would be okay, except for the mandate is for us to have all of these implemented by August 18th. So because we are going in the most efficient manner, which we can sometimes out of technical order, we have it all mapped out for you to see what we're doing. But this is going to impact us very significantly in the sciences. It's going to impact us, and that Missouri students no longer have to take both political science and history, and it's going to impact us in that Missouri students no longer have to take a fine or performing arts. There are certain things that we would like to preserve for our native students. We would like to continue to expect that our native students would indeed take a fine in performing arts. It would not inhibit transfer articulation in any way. This is something we're going to be working out. There are other threats to our campus right now. Lifetime wellness is something that is unique that we have here on this campus. There's no comparable course, although we think with the opioid crisis, with suicide rates, with a variety of other issues, that it is critical. And we are the only institution that has the international mandate. Right now, the state of Missouri says there is no place for those to be considered. So we're going to try to creatively weave those in the way that we can to be very good partners with the other institutions, but also recognize the unique responsibilities we have to our students, and we have to do that in relatively short order. So it could well be that we need committee meetings for academic affairs this semester as we begin to sort through those. I also have updated information for you on MDHE low completer review. We have heard on some, we have not heard on others, and so this is the disposition of where we stand right now. We have gotten approval for combining modern languages, which is essentially merging, and not just merging, but really enhancing the efficiency of the degree paths for French and Spanish into one overall modern languages degree that would have tracks in French and Spanish. We have been approved, and this is a really big deal for us because it's so mission critical. We have been approved by MDHE to offer the what we're calling the GPA degree, the Global and Political Affairs. It is a degree that is going to be of interest to current students now who are minoring in geography, political science, or international studies. we got word last night about 10 o'clock, and that's how dynamic it is, that HLC is going to want a full review of that program, and we never know until we turn it in. But I do have in the handout when we anticipate these programs will be up and running. Chemistry and biochemistry, we are still waiting the initial load completer review, but our intent is to try and combine those two degrees. We are still awaiting MDHE determination on 4 science programs, chemistry and biochemistry, as well as medical technology and physics. And so obviously we would like to keep our stronghold in science if we can. Music industry and music have been combined, and that has been approved. We are articulating in order to work toward greater efficiencies for tracks in music, and that program has been approved, and you'll see details on that later. The programs that are still being deliberated, we still don't have word on, and we have no word on when we might get word on these, and that is physics, medical technology, I've mentioned those two, and each of our fine and performing arts programs are still at risk and in jeopardy. Theater, music, and art, all of those. Obviously, they're critical to our liberal education. We want to make sure that we're able to always offer solid programming in those areas, but we haven't heard. And then if all that was not enough, we are also gearing up very intently, although we're always gearing up, but for our February 2019 visit from HLC, it is a once every 10-year visit. This is the first time we are on the path called the Open Pathways. The Open Pathways has a component of a traditional criterion compliance, but also a quality initiative. What we are doing here is, some years ago, there was something called a program prioritization under our previous president. When Dr. Marble arrived here, that evolved into the Continuous Quality Improvement Initiative. And what we are developing is the case to say that the most contemporary manifestation of that quality initiative is the great game of education. And so we have that team working on that and showing that strategically and with accountability and transparency, we've followed up and utilized all those, and that we really are improving quality as well as other efficiencies with that. The other teams, we met with the whole large group at the end of the semester in December. All of the committees are working. Their evidence is due to the coordinating and steering committee on April 1st. We have to, we'll have the rest of the summer and early fall to refine and lock in the evidence and prepare for that visit. So we are very hopeful that it will go well, but it's always very uncertain. you can think you're completely well prepared, and it doesn't always turn out. Last time around, there were some concerns articulated by HLC with regard to strategic planning, which we've been engaging in, and you all are critical parts of, as well as with transparency and shared governance, and I think that we've addressed that a great deal as well. So I don't think there are any lingering historical concerns. We hope they're not new emergent concerns that we don't know that they're going to be concerned about, but we will surely keep you up to date on that. We had a couple of staffing changes I just wanted you to be aware of. We had two new hires, 2 terminally qualified faculty, Dr. Meyerhoff in biology, and then Dr. Branstetter Hall in nursing. So we are excited to have them join us. We saw the initiation of 3 phased retirements and then 1 full retirement. And our friend, whom you guys know very well, Dr. Brad Kramer, who spent many meetings with us, was offered an opportunity to teach at the medical school at KCO, and it was just too much of a good deal. He's a true genetics expert, and they really needed that. And so we'll continue to work and partner with him, and our faculty will do collaborative research. But he started there in January, starts lecturing in February, and so we're very pleased that Dr. Anna Renner is our new department head in biology and environmental health. Total successful completion of 3 years of very hard accreditation work to get our initial social work program accredited. And what that essentially means is when our students complete, they'll be able to say they completed from an accredited school of social work, and that was a very important commitment we made to our students, and proud to achieve that. And then it's not that much of a typical achievement, but we are going for it and think we can earn it and deserve it as an institution that is National Association for the Accreditation of Schools of Music is something we're pursuing. They will have a visit in October We had a preliminary visit report that we just got this week. We think we are pretty well positioned to achieve that. And that will be a significant differentiator and affirmation of the quality. Many serious music majors really look for that designation before they choose to major. And it's something that I think that we can achieve. And so very thankful the music department has been working on that. I have other updates in the academic policies later in the program.
Good. Thank you for your report. Dr. Carson, are there any questions? All right. Next is the VP for Student Affairs, Mr. Fullerton.
You have a written report in front of you. I'll just highlight a few things. You can see a photo of one of our students, Haley Henry. Many of you may know her. She's an outstanding junior health promotion and wellness major here at Missouri Southern. She represented us at the Student Leadership Forum in Jefferson City over the holiday break. Many of you had interacted with Kelly Wilson. She was our past director of the Advising Counseling Testing Center. She retired in August, and Faustina Abrahams was serving as interim director. And as of January 1st, the interim came off, and she is now the full-time director of our Advising Counseling and Testing Center, and doing a fantastic job for us there. With the budget information that Rob presented, and I know Dr. Marvel's going to talk about, I thought not a lot of good news, but at least some good news. We received the funding levels for our campus-based aid that we received from the U.S. Department of Education. If you remember when the first comments were coming out about the federal budget, the Supplemental Education Opportunity Grant was one that they were talking about may or may not make the cut, and we could have lost, and so that is in there. Very modest increase in that over this past year. Federal work study is still in the budget, and so we have a slight increase there. The biggest change for us is that, and you've heard Linda and I think both talk about the Perkins loan. The Perkins loan expired last fall in September, and so that will mean a difference to us of about $1 million in authorized aid that we were able to give to students. If you remember, Perkins loans were available. Those were the money we collected from previous students and had them pay back. We were able to authorize that back out. That program is no longer there, and so we have one less tool to offer our students at the federal level. The work study, again, a small increase there, and I know Dr. Marver's going to talk about the budget. Minimum wage increase, as you're aware, Missouri's minimum wage went up in January. So even small tweaks like that to the budget have a huge impact to Missouri Southern. We hire a significant number of students on campus, and unfortunately in most of those areas we do pay minimum wage, but that has caused compression in some of the areas where we were paying a little more than minimum wage, such as our tutors and support staff. So those students now are making almost what the minimum wage is, and that's created some recruitment problems for us. Derek mentioned the payment due date, and I'd be remiss if I didn't remind you of that, and I'm surprised Linda didn't remind us of that. Thursday at 5 o'clock is the due date for students to make payments, and we still do have several students on that list. Fortunately, not Dr. Marvel's or mine or Rob's were on that list when I last checked. So. And then on the back of the page, I'll leave for your perusal. Those are some programs, and just to let you see what some of them are fall numbers of what the Career Services Office did. Some are the Student Success Center's fall data, and then the ACTS Office, the Advising Counseling Testing. Those are just their December numbers. But to give you an idea of what some of these student support programs are doing and providing for our students. You also have a flyer, Dress to Impress. And again, we're doing this, and there's some data on the back that Career Services was able to provide. This is the program that we work with the Young Professionals Network of the Chamber on. And so just to make you aware of that, but then also to plead with you if you have, like many of us do, extra clothing in your closets that you haven't worn in quite a while. This really makes a difference in the lives of these students. It gives them professional attire that they can wear to their first interviews upon graduation or seeking internships. So that is my report. Entertain any questions?
Awesome.
people like me, they're just sure they're gonna get back into that soon. It's gonna happen.
And some of us had talked about, are there really students that can wear my size? And yes, there are. Even Dr. Marble and I and Rob can. We should find students.
He wasn't even involved in that. Rob, are those tire marks on your back? Is that what I see? Did you get thrown into the bus?
See that one go.
Are there any questions of Darren? Darren, thank you for your.
Thank you.
Just let him know, Tammy did pay Aiden's tuition too.
We're good.
Next is the report of the Faculty Senate President, Dr. Ncaa.
Hello, thank you. Just a few items besides curricular changes, which you can see in the report. The faculty asked the Faculty Senate Executive Committee and the Senate to look at the office hours policy. And so the current office hours policy is 10 mandatory office hours. We tasked faculty welfare with looking at this and looking at universities that are similar to us in the Missouri system, considering things like email and live office hours and Blackboard, and make a recommendation, which they did. And so the recommendation to be commensurate with similar universities in the Missouri system and also take technology into account was 6 hours of office hours per week. This now gets sent to the Faculty Handbook Committee to come up with specific language, and then it goes back to a vote, and it still has some process to go through, but we're happy to say we're working on that. The other interesting thing we took on was for classes that are not a part of the transfer system already from accredited universities and don't already have these motor numbers and things. A lot of the times a student will come from a non-accredited school with a course that's similar to one that they have here. And it basically goes to a professor who has to decide whether or not this class should substitute for a Missouri Southern class. And the policy on the books as it was written it wasn't being followed, for one, always the same, right? It wasn't consistent. And the other thing is a lot of faculty felt that they didn't have the proper information to make these decisions. And so we looked at this and we kind of came up with a policy that could possibly be implemented where it's up to the professor to ask for certain documentation, the credentials of the faculty member who taught the course, possibly a syllabus, and then sign off on it. There was no spot for the faculty to literally sign off. And so those were the two things that we mainly worked on at the last meeting. And then you can see there were a lot of curricular changes. And so as the Core 42 comes through and as all these wonderful certificate programs come through, Senate is looking at hundreds and hundreds of pages of these and passing them each month. And so that's basically what's going on. And then I just wanted to say, just to talk about something that Darren talked about. That clothing drive thing is really important. So I'm the advisor for Model EU and mock trial, and you'd be surprised how many of our students don't have professional attire to go into these simulations. And every year that you guys hold this, our students are able to get clothes. So I just wanted to say it's a really good program. Thank you.
Thank you for your report.
I had a question.
Certainly.
So on the reduction of office hours from 10 to 6, what would be the format of the additional 4 hours that they'll no longer be in their office?
Yeah, so I guess the idea is you have to be, as it is now, you have to be in your office for 10 hours per week, and you have to spread that out among the entire week. What we've seen is that students tend to use email more often now or use discussion forums more often now. And there's fewer visits to the office hours. And so, and the other thing is 10 hours is actually quite a bit when you look at sort of, I don't want to get into like the human resources formula, but if you look at this formula, these office hours are a huge portion of what we're doing in the teaching realm. And a lot of faculty members have a lot of service, and so they're sometimes canceling office hours to go to meetings, and that's happening frequently. And Missouri Southern is just very high, not commensurate necessarily with our sister universities. And so combined, the committee found that 6 is what most of our sort of universities are looking at, and they don't necessarily think the other 4 will be added in some way, right? But they've considered digital office hours and Blackboard.
Well, I had a follow-up question. Yeah, has there been any discussion about a policy of like turnaround time to respond to a student email?
Yes, it's in the handbook. It's
Okay.
48 hours as it stands now. So,
48,
yep,
and
48 hours by email. And I think what
so
we're-
a time commitment of, say, 4 hours would be a little bit redundant, if there is a
when you're
turnaround.
answering
Yeah.
emails and things
Yeah.
like that. And the other thing is, we are very aware of the need for access. And so part of the reorganization from faculty handbook is going to be more specific language on when the parameters of these office hours,
Okay.
right? Because you don't want to have a professor scheduling office hours at like, hey, 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., right? Because the students aren't going to come. So we want to make sure that they're within
Exactly,
this
access is
parameter
the
of
priority.
access, the most prime time hours, and then adding to that things like digital office hours, live office hours. Because when we do our online classes, a lot of the ways we do it are live office hours. So I'll be at my computer between this and this hour, and any emails that come in, I answer them instantly. So we're working on those types of things.
Like a live chat.
Yeah, like a live chat.
A little background, I think, and I'm surmising this because we talked about it earlier. The 10 hours of office hours, I believe, came as holdover from the old community college days. Because my experience with community, you don't do research and service, it's just teaching. They teach a 15-hour load. Loads are usually doubled, so that's 30 hours plus 10 hours office. There's 40-hour week. And so that was just kind of carried over, but our professors are required to do research and service and other things. And besides just changing that, they're taking a deeper dive into how do we do better. Office hours, what are you doing with the office hours? How are you advising and all that? So it's really a very good thing.
To me, that's the biggest thing. You're updating it to the way people actually want to contact you today.
Right,
It's-
technology
it's-
is how they
Now,
want
There was only face-to-face when I was in school at that point. Today, there are a myriad of ways that they contact the student, and I'm glad you're really looking into that, because you need to be available the way the student really wants to access you, so.
I think that's an excellent point. Excellent. Any other questions? Thank you for your report. Thank you. Our staff Senate President, Sharon Frazier, can't be here today, but Angela Bennett is here and going to give her report.
We worked really hard on the bylaws, which Fullerton, I guess, had started those bylaws, so I thank Tim for going over those, and hopefully he was happy to see those. So we've got final approval on the bylaws, making some minor changes along with, because there was some section changes, amendments. So though it flows a lot better, and we were happy to hear that that was approved for 2017, so we're good for 2018. And then we'd also like to thank Dr. Hobson and Mr. Hughes for joining us and letting us know about all the HLC stuff that's going on and updating the staff. We really appreciate the time and effort that they put in to let the staff know what's going on as well. And that's it.
Very good. Any questions? Angela, thank you for that report. Next is the report of the Student Senate President, Mr. Blank.
Yep. Welcome back. Senate is back in session, and we've kind of hit the ground running this semester with a couple of projects. First and foremost is banners on campus, which is a chance to allow all registered student organizations to get their logo displayed on a banner, which will be displayed in the Lions Den. And so right now, that's just waiting for a budget to be passed. And then we're also working on a trophy case expansion. Mr. Bob Harrington just met with them the other day. We're going to look at the possibilities of getting a bigger trophy case for our organizations on campus to display them in the Lions Den. And then lastly is vacancy committee. We had two graduating senators, or one graduated and the other went into the police academy this semester, and so we are working to fill those seats.
Very good. I have a question about that. How does an organization become registered? What process is that?
The Student Activities Office, which is downstairs in this building, it's relatively easy. They have a sample packet, sample constitution. They require a faculty staff advisor and a roster of interested students for that organization. And they can walk them through the process, or they can call our office. We can help them. At any given time, it will fluctuate from one year to the next, but we'll have anywhere from 65 to 85 different student organizations on campus.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Blank? Thank you for your report. We have no reports from board committees this month. So next is the report of our president.
Thank you, Governor Kramer. It'd start off a report like this, but I started off with a mistake, and it was mine. I didn't, handbook says for sabbatical, to be a sabbatical request, go through a big process, and then are presented to the board for ratification in January. I failed to get Ncaa Abraham's stuff to you. But he did go through the process, approved by the department chairs, dean, provost, and, you know, Dr. Karib's sabbatical now, but these will be next year. We all approve of it, think it's the right thing to do, but it doesn't need a ratification vote from the board. I'm sorry I didn't get you the materials. I apologize. We can get those to you soon, or maybe Dr. Carson might speak to it just briefly, his proposal.
Oh, thank you, and thank you, President Marble, for bringing it up. The handbook allows us to support up to 2 sabbaticals a year. We only are requesting 1 sabbatical this year. It's for Dr. Ncaa, and he is an economist, been here a very, very long time, a leading scholar. He has contributed in many ways to our Core 42. He's been our actual institutional representative on that, but more specifically, he's worked with the Plaster Foundation on advancing use of their materials and economics, and he's very interested in doing some research in and with Ghana, which is where he is from. And so he has developed a comprehensive protocol. He's looking for a 1 semester.
Where did you say? I missed what you said.
Ghana.
Ghana. Thank you.
He led actually a study abroad trip with Dr. Moose last year to Ghana, and keeps a lot of academic ties. And obviously, it's not a trip you can make in a week, or so he's looking to have some flexibility, do some global economic research. He's a good scholar. He is well published. He is highly regarded. He's very current, and we really appreciate your support for us. We'll miss him around here because he's key to a lot of committees, but he really is, in many ways, as we try to re-energize our research enterprise here on campus, he's real key to that. He's real key to doing that, and I think it will be beneficial not just to him, but to the whole campus if he's able to do this.
And what's the length of the sabbatical?
It's a semester.
Semester.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And coverage for his classes is not a problem. They already have that as part of the proposal and request process. You have to work out coverage that doesn't require a new full-time person, you know, with adjuncts or with colleagues stepping up or whatever.
And he's gonna go there for his research,
For part
so
of
he'll
it.
come back
For
with
part of it.
firsthand.
He'll be back in
experience.
the
Students, yeah.
Yeah.
And how does that work as far as his pay?
He continues to get his pay and his benefits as though he was here. And the expectation, obligation is you have to work in an academic institution a certain number of years to be eligible, but then he comes back and he does share his experiences. He presents them to the campus community or to those outside, and writes it up and publishes it.
As you all know, these are very valuable tools in my estimation, and I apologize for not getting it.
So it is the administration's recommendation to the board that we ratify this decision.
Absolutely.
Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Governor Franks, Governor Hershaway, any discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion carries.
We'll expect to hear some of that research ourselves.
Thank you all so much. We can have him come.
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Economics, right?
Economics. Thank you all very much.
So
We could use
kind of start my report backwards, I think, going back to front. The spring welcome back meeting this year, people came back with just really great feedback. Had all the presidents cabinet present, update people, present, did a great job. But Great Game Education Culture Committee, we asked them to participate too, and they selected Marianne Nitz as their speaker, and she just knocked it out of the park, I think. Did a home run job of presenting what we're doing with the Great Game, and how it can help us in our retention efforts, which really was the theme of the day. If we retain more students, then it's just obviously going to help us in every way possible. Again, hats off to the Culture Committee for what they've done, not only to get us to this point in helping save money, but to look to the future and how they're going to help with retention too. The next thing is our strategic plan we've been working on. We held a series of stakeholder engagement sessions through the fall. We also had the Survey Monkey opportunity for people to present ideas, really in the same format that we used with the board back in June. We asked you to think about our mission and what words would be critical to that mission and really stand out if they were absent. So if Joe doesn't have that copy, don't look at those results, because we're going to meet with the students tomorrow night, and I don't want to color their opinions. And if you did get a copy of that, tear that off the back there, Darren, so he doesn't see them. But as you can see, we just ranked them and kind of combined those that, there are many, many more comments, but we took the top comments. You can see what those are and how they kind of connect to what the board had selected earlier in June. So you can see how those two things correlate. And then we'll have the student comments later, but we should plan sometime in February, either before our next meeting or after or sometime, get together and start ferreting out a mission statement that really says something that we can remember, that's important, that people will attach to. So this is really a good step in getting the student input tomorrow night, tomorrow afternoon. We meet with Student Senate and representatives of all the registered campus groups to get their input. So we'll have that for you. The last piece, and the one that is obviously on our minds, is the budget. Mr. Hughes talked about it, certainly did a good job explaining, but simply it's this. We're looking at every year, and Governor Haley brought it up, what you see published, what the appropriations published, it's really 3% less than that every year. There's a governor's withholding 3% first. Then this year, we had a 10% cut in the recommended budget from the governor, and a 10% holdback, they're calling it, that you can earn through the 6 performance measures. The good news is it appears we're going to get all the 6 performance measures so that 10% comes back. But there's really nothing at all we can do about 10% that would be lost, except to battle in the General Assembly to get it put back in there. And that's what we're doing. We've had several conference calls. In fact, I had one yesterday afternoon with other presidents and budget officers to discuss what we might be able to do to get the money restored in the General Assembly. Of course, that is still vulnerable. The governor can withhold. Even after, if it was restored to last year's level, it could be withheld again. So I think that, unfortunately, we're going to have to look at some tuition increases as we move forward this spring. Because we're just going to have to take care of ourselves, take care of our own university. I think it's becoming harder and harder to predict what's going to happen in Jefferson City. But do know that we're doing everything possible. You saw the statement we put out yesterday. Maybe a little too strong a criticism of it, but pretty disappointing to see cut after cut after cut over the last decade. Frankly, in the last decade, the Missouri net general revenue has grown $2 billion. At the same time, higher education has been cut over $200 million. So it's just priorities have shifted, and we've got to get the priorities back where we need to be, or I'm afraid we're going to fail a generation of students, and that's just not acceptable. That's my report. I'd invite any questions or comments that anyone might have.
Governor Franks.
I want to read something I wrote this morning, and it's kind of based on a lot of things that have happened the last few months, but it harkens back to the 50th anniversary. Really what is Missouri Southern today that we celebrated this fall with, quite frankly, our entire legislative delegation. Recently, the entire region celebrated the 50th anniversary of the vision that is today's Missouri Southern State University. This vision was created by local leaders, local legislators, and a governor that embraced their vision. Today, Missouri's current governor has placed this vision in jeopardy. Missouri Southern serves this region in an outstanding manner. The importance of its role is confirmed by the fact that 6 in 10 of our students are first-generation college students. Missouri Southern is therefore a regional engine for economic growth and the gateway for a better future for our students. Missouri Southern offers area residents the opportunity to become doctors, nurses, administrators, teachers, accountants, construction managers, and many other essential and good-paying careers. Missouri Southern is a leader in cost containment, innovative cost management tools and programs that allow the university to fulfill its mission despite ever-decreasing state support, and to do this with one of the lowest tuition rates available. Let's be clear. The primary reason for increasing tuition in Missouri is the lack of state funding. The current proposal by the governor is a mandate for higher tuition. Missouri Southern's strong mission and management is known, but to our area's legislative delegation. I urge them to use their knowledge as the basis for building the budget for higher education.
Thank you. Well stated.
Thank you. It's challenging times. One thing's for certain, we cannot let the dream and the vision of this institution change anywhere along the way. And I'm sure you will.
Won't happen.
So, thank you. Any further questions for Alan? Is there any old business to come before the body? Hearing none, we move to new business. And first up is the lobbyist report. Alan, do you want to introduce these folks?
Gary Burton has been working with us for years, but he's been our sole lobbyist now for what, 3 years? 4? Sure. And we'd like to have him come present an update on what happened in the last session, what we look forward to this session. So, turn over to Gary.
Thank you.
Do it together.
I'd also like to introduce Tony Duggar. He's with our staff. He was a legislator for 8 years, chairman of the banking committee the last 5 or 6, 4 years, and he joined our staff last year and is working with me in representing Missouri Southern. First of all, I think that's an excellent article, and it hit the points nail on the head. We've talked with Dr. Marble about what's going on up there this year, and to kind of just lay it out, revenues are expected to grow about $200 million this year, or for next year. And unfortunately, with the federal tax cuts and the tax proposal that they passed in 2015, which cuts federal or state revenue, there's going to be about a $300 million shortfall in revenue. So the governor and his budget cut approximately $500 million from various programs. Unfortunately, higher ed has continued to be a hit list of the governor. I think part of that is due to the fact that the problems that we had with MU a few years ago. However, MU is working extremely hard to try to overcome those problems, and they've changed presidents and so forth. The kind of example, I told Doctor that the president of MU was actually at the Missouri Senate bowling tournament this week. He came down, and first time that's ever happened, and bowled with all the senators and was out shaking hands and trying to, I think, make amends with what's been going on in the past. But it's still going to be a very difficult year. In front of you, I handed out a bill list that we put out once a week. We track these bills and others that might come up in the future that would be of interest to Southern. Not all of these are by any means going to go anywhere, but I've kind of put a check mark by some of those that we're watching very closely. Before I actually go into that, though, I think one of the big questions that's been asked me every time I make a presentation in front of a group, that is what's going to happen with the governor's office. And we've all read the paper, what's been going on. It's been head front and center in Missouri Senate and Missouri Legislature up there. Personally, I think unless something else major pops out, the governor probably will skate through this. However, his reputation's been tarnished, and the respect that the legislature has had for the governor, I think, is probably at an all-time low. When his budget came out, I got called into Ron Richards' office, and this was almost immediately, and he said, I see where the governor took a hit on Missouri Southern and other higher ed programs, and he said, let me just assure you that's not going to stay when we go through the budgeting process. Since that time, I've talked to Scott Fitzpatrick, chairman of the House Budget Committee. He assured me the same thing, that they were going to make every attempt to try to put funding in for higher ed. Now, how much that's going to be, nobody knows yet. It's going to be a long process. when they have a shortfall of overall revenue that they have to kind of balance out somehow, they're going to have to take from somebody and give to somebody else. So who's going to be the fall guy to get a hit? I know elementary and secondary education, to fully fund the foundation formula is going to take about $95 million, I'm sorry, $950 million. That's not going to happen because they don't have that much money. So they're putting about $50 million into funding that. $95 million is what total amount is. They're going to put about $50 million in to try to help shore up the foundation formula. I would say that program probably would get cut back, and the dollars they save off of that would go into the higher education budget. But I don't know that for a fact, and like I say, we're in the beginning stages of trying to decipher that. When I talked about the governor, whether he's going to stay or leave, he's indicated all intentions that he plans on staying. However, if you've got an FBI investigation going on, and probably worse than that is CNN and other national news media has been at the Capitol for the last couple of weeks, and they're doing thorough investigations with as much as back high school kids that he went to school with and things like that. So you never know what might be uncovered, but barring the fact that nothing may come out, I'd say that he would probably stay in office and at least finish out his first term. A couple of bills that we're following. The first bill out of the chute in the House was a bill that actually we've been working on for a couple of years. The initial reason for that was the fact that there was the degree programs between the four-year schools and MU. We just weren't being able to do collaborative efforts, and so the presidents came up with a bill last year, introduced, went through the House, went over to the Senate, and because of the function of the Senate, got killed in the last couple of weeks, not because of its merit, but just because there was a lot of filibustering going on the last couple of weeks of the session last year. So that bill died. It was the first bill out of the House this year. It should be voted out of the House either this week or the first part of next week, and we'll go over to the Senate, and Senator Watson, I think, on the Senate side will handle the same bill over there, and that bill probably will pass this year unless the Senate explodes again like it did last year. I know one of the big things that you guys are all interested in, and that is, what happens on 389 bill that we passed a few years ago that limited the amount of money that you could raise for tuition. There is a bill that's been filed that would allow, it's 912, but it would allow a CPI increase plus 10% increase in local student fees. The bill's been filed in the Senate. There's not a companion bill in the House yet, but I'm sure there will be. I know that I've been meeting with the other lobbyists representing the other universities. There's about 10 of us that meet pretty regularly, and that is a high priority of every university in the state, and it's a high priority of the teams that are working for those universities, is to try to figure out some type of a stopgap there that would give more latitude and leeway to the universities to be able to increase some of your tuitions in order to offset the fact that the state is not doing their part. So we'll continue to work on that. There's also been a number of bills filed. They still think that student debt is too high, and there's been a few bills filed that would require the universities to come in and give salary information about the professors of the different areas that these students would want to go into, so that they could do the research on who their professor is, how many students are graduating out of that and finding jobs, and all kinds of things that are just going to put more headaches on the universities to be able to try to meet those standards. They tried to amend that bill on the floor on the degree offering bill, and the guy withdrew it because they were trying to keep that bill clean. But I think it's a standard for what's coming, is the fact that he's going to try everything he can to add that to whatever bill that he can possibly find down there. The good thing is that we do have friends on the Education Committee, both in the House and Senate, And as far as that bill probably flying on its own, it will not. But that doesn't mean that he won't continue to try to amending it on other bills as they come on the floor, and we just have to watch that and make certain it doesn't happen. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions if you have anything that I can answer for. I know on the budget side, thank goodness that you beat the criteria, and we'll be able to get that additional 10% there. But it's still going to mean $300,000 to $400,000 that you're going to lose in revenue, even under the governor's budget. So we have to try to figure out, how we can turn that thing around. Glad to answer any questions.
Gary, I know you know all this, so don't get me wrong, but obviously the governor and his message painted with a pretty broad brush about what he thinks the inefficiencies exist in higher ed. You're obviously very well informed about the situation here at Southern, where we actually have fewer vice presidents than we've ever had, and where through the great game of education and everything else, we've done the best to hold our costs down and our tuition at that point. So I think the only thing I'd want to say is just to make sure that people understand that there are a number of institutions in the state, and the varying ability they've had to manage is different from one to another. So this universal withhold, this universal attack on higher education funding is not merited on any level. So.
I think you're 100% right. There are, one or two schools that kind of bring everybody else down if they aren't doing a good job or if they're top heavy. I think the university's done a good job in meeting with local legislators and explaining that to them. And I think that without a doubt, all of our local legislators understand that problem. They understand the issues that Southern is going through, and they've made that very clear to them. And, hopefully that message will get carried on up the ladder, because the other schools, I think, are doing the same type of thing.
I think that's my only thing, is make sure that message does get carried far and wide.
I'd like to have a copy of your thing there too, so I can pass that around to some of the legislators. So,
Any other questions for Mr. Burton?
Sir, Gary, just a comment. I know you're well aware of this. You've got 11 pages in front of you there, 8 to 9 bills per page. And I think what the people at the state don't realize, and maybe even our own folks, most of those bills require a significant amount of effort on the staff and faculty here to provide information back, to provide fiscal notes back, to combat some of the fallacy that's in there. Many of the things that were posted last year are already covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. They fall under contracts that the universities have. But again, these are all unfunded mandates that we're literally wasting time on, that takes us away from serving our students, that Dr. Marble talked about.
And money.
And money, absolutely. That time is money. And so I know you're well aware of that, and I appreciate you keeping that out in the forefront of those legislators.
if any of you all would like to get that report, I can put you on the mailing list. I assume that's okay. If anybody would like that, just give me the email addresses and I can make sure that you get those reports. We send them out once a week, and we try to track each of those bills as they move forward. Dr. Marble and staff calls us and says, hey, this is a no-no here, or this is okay, and we try to get comments. Many times in committee hearings, if somebody from the university can't come up and testify, then we will fill in and testify on behalf of the university so that we can let them know, the legislators know, that we're either for or against a particular piece of legislation. A lot of these bills that we've listed here, some of them are identical, just filed by different legislators. So it's not quite as bad as what it looks, but there are a number of things. And some of them, depending on which side of the aisle they happen to come from, you know pretty well that they're not probably going to go anyplace, but then you still have to track them because they can use them as amendments on other bills that are moving. So we have to watch that very carefully.
I just like to say we appreciate what you do, Gary, and your whole team, because there's times I get a call at 10 o'clock at night. He's just coming out of committee meetings, hey, we need to do something tomorrow.
Well, many times that's when we find out about it is at the last minute, and unfortunately, we have to have an answer pretty quick sometimes. So
Well,
I appreciate working with you all, and you've been a great entity down here. I know over the years that we've worked together.
Good. Gary, thank you for the work.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Carson, you have consideration of academic policies.
Thank you so much. I have a multi-page academic policies reports. The top page is the summary. The subsequent 3 pages are actually an outline of what we'll be looking at in what order when this semester. But today I just have 1 baccalaureate degree and 5 certificates that I would like for you to consider, and appreciate your deliberation and affirmation. We had talked many times about certificates, but again, I think that we're going to be we're in the beginning to see a good many of those. And so I want to remind you before we go forward that we are very efficient in our orientation toward degrees. We are not looking at proliferation. We're not creating anything that's going to be low enrollment or esoteric. So just to remind you about these certificates as a prefatory comment, they tend to be interdisciplinary and therefore as a result of that of interest to students from any major across the campus. The next requirement that we internally expect is that they can be pursued alongside a bachelor's degree, but they can also be taken post-baccalaureate and maybe even by non-matriculating students. Third, that they use existing courses, take advantage of existing bandwidth in courses right now, and they range between 9 and 18 hours. The state of Missouri has recognized the certificate as an actual credential, so they will be awarded a piece of paper that looks like a bachelor's degree. And it is a very good exercise because we have faculty from across disciplines brainstorming, coming up with them. Our most recent initiative, and I have nothing, it's still in the brainstorming stage, is a sustainability certificate where there are many who think that it will be of relevance and value to their majors, and many departments can contribute. So you've seen some before. These 4 certificates here that I ask for your support all come from the social sciences department. And again, we think that there's a brief description here. We think that they will be of general interest and value. With the Core 42, there is a great deal of concern that no longer will all Missouri students be required to have some fundamental knowledge of history and political science, which we think are both critical skills. They will have to choose one, and so we want to make sure that that we are graduating employable, educated, and informed students. And so we have these. We have great strength in the social science department in terms of expertise, and recently the state has supported our the criticality of us offering a history degree and so on. So we would like your support on those. The other one has been a long time coming. It is a major, and it is following the evolution to our 4-year degree in dental hygiene, something that has been discussed for many, many years, has been carefully deliberated. I had made reference to this at an earlier meeting. This is probably the single 4-year degree proposal that I've seen the most accolades ever received from academic policies. It is well thought out. It has been intensely deliberated and benchmarked. It's an attempt really to graduate a very, very qualified technician, but also a critical thinker and a leader in the dental field. So it has been well received up to this point and supported through all the internal processes, and now I ask for your support of that as well.
Very well. Are there any questions of Dr. Carson?
Do we still have waiting lists to get into the dental hygiene program that we did in the past?
In the health science programs, we have extremely competitive situation. Eased only a little bit in nursing since we doubled the capacity, but we always still have waiting lists. The reason we have waiting lists is because the accreditors are very, very stringent about faculty to student ratios in that program, as well as in radiology. They're really small. As we look at budgets and deliberate, how do we maximize efficiency? If you look at the cost to deliver programs, some of those most heavily demanded by society are the ones in which take the biggest loss per student. How do we subsidize those? How do we subsidize those as little as possible? Basically, do all of these social science degrees end up subsidizing that 4-year dental hygiene degree? We're looking at those things all of the time, and so they have a waiting list, and the obvious thought might be expand it, but every time we expand a dental hygiene, take a new student, we lose more money. So there is.
So we really need differential tuition that takes care of that. So when you take, an English class, a philosophy class, there's a tuition here, but if you take one of these high demand classes, the tuition's all higher. So far we haven't been able to get that done.
I'm very happy to see a certificate in public administration. I can tell you that there is a real lack of qualified people to go into local governments everywhere anymore. And given the extremely and growingly complex nature of those jobs, I'm glad to see a certificate program available in this area.
Well, and these performance funding measures show that apparently these kind of things are valued, but we're a little vague on how to execute them. It looks to me like you've come up with a good execution plan for it.
Good, thank you. We're super excited about these. You may be, like Nick referred to a plethora of certificates. You may be tired of seeing them by the end, but why not?
But really,
You know what I mean?
apparently,
They're
the
well thought
task
through.
force thought it provided value to the state and region, and so.
Exactly.
They just didn't tell us how to get there.
And we really think as we deliberate, looking at two-year schools, 1 to 4-year schools, how do we differentiate and add value when there's no way we're gonna be able to deliver at the same cost because of the additional burdens that we have at a 4-year school. So if we're, if the 2-year schools can offer 4-year degrees and we cannot compete on price, we have to compete on features and value. And how do we do that? This is a critical part of our strategic platform to accomplish that.
Any other questions? To move forward with this, the board has to accept and approve these
I appreciate that.
proposals, so the chair would entertain a motion to do so. Governor Plotnick, is there a second?
Second.
Governor Haley, any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Carries. Jared, you're gonna tell us about some fireworks.
Absolutely. We love fireworks, don't we?
Jared fireworks.
Kind of scared. Kind of scared.
You may want to hold on to this crime.
Yeah, put up.
As you know, we do actually have fireworks that we do during this season. We have them in football. We've also used them at baseball before as well too. But Paul is joining me here. Paul's the director of Parks and Rec here in Joplin. We've served on several committees together over the few years, and we serve on Joplin Sports Authority together. And I'm not sure if it was in jest or not, but in a conversation we were having, he was like, "Hey, would you like to host the 4th of July celebration here at Missouri Southern?" Historically, I think that had been the case prior to myself arriving here. But in that conversation, we kind of talked about it over time and visited with some other folks, and think that might be a really good idea for us to be able to do that for a lot of different reasons, including the fact that we have pretty easy, accessible place to get into. We have quite a bit of parking. Some of the things that they've incorporated over the years into the event, I think we could accommodate very well in the athletics area, including on the field and all that. So, Paul, I just want to say a few words, and then I'll add to it or go from there.
Well, thanks for having me. And Jared, it is actually kind of funny. A couple of years ago at a JSA meeting, we were talking, and I was talking. It must have been just after our 4th of July. You're like, "Hey, you want to host it at Missouri Southern?" And I'm like, "Come on, you got to be kidding." And then I'm like, another year went by, and Jared's like, "My offer still stands," and I'm like. A little bit of history. I came here in '99, and we've always had the 4th of July in my time at Dover, Landreth Park and top of Dover where the fireworks were shot. And then logistically wise and safety wise, we moved it out to the athletic complex the past 3 years. Well, the first year we kind of got hit pretty hard in the media with relocating the 4th of July and whatnot. In the past couple of years it got better. But then I started Jared and I started talking, and I'm like, man, that would be awesome to bring back to Missouri Southern. From what I've talked to several individuals before I moved here, having it at Missouri Southern was fantastic. It was a great show. It was easy getting out of the campus. And from my end and Jared's end, it's a great partnership between the city of Joplin and Missouri Southern. So we had a meeting and worked things out, and we're happy to be a partner with the Missouri Southern to have it here this year. So we've had a couple of meetings so far.
A few more yet.
A few more to go.
And logistics.
Logistics, we got to get our city personnel on board, fire and police and public works and whatnot, but we're excited. It's going to be a great partnership. We can't wait to get out here. Our police department's way excited. Trying to get the traffic out of the athletic complex is a nightmare. And so when I told our police liaison, he gave me a big, huge hug and almost a kiss, but he was excited. So yeah, we can't wait for this to happen, and we look forward to doing this for years to come. And yeah.
A few things just about it. We're handling athletics as predominantly, and Parks University is handling a lot of the logistical things, including make sure the power's up. And the football field, we're going to have activities out there that'll be regulated by Joplin Parks and Rec, as well as, this will be a minimal cost from Missouri Southern, but it's really an opportunity to join forces with the city, which I think over the years has certainly been greatly improved, and we look forward to continuing to do joint activities with them as well. So I know with the budget cuts, we should probably make sure everybody understands this is we're dealing with this in the way we can, and we have salaried positions and people that will work these hours regardless. It's how athletics works. We work on weekends and evenings, so and the day, so it works out fine that way. So anyway, we do have a couple of council members here as well. So Councilmember Shaw is here, and Councilmember West is here to show support. Did you guys want to make any comment?
Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to say, first of all, it would be great. I've been in Joplin all my life. Most of you know me. I've been the longest member of Joplin City Council. I remember years back we had the fireworks out at the campus. It was great. It was really great, full. I didn't know a reason why we moved it from the campus anyway, but I think it'd be an excellent idea, like Paul's saying. Being a former police officer myself in the city, that traffic is a very, very nightmare, and on the Schifferdecker, it's more than a nightmare. And as he said, we have plenty of flow. Dr. Marvel can get in and out here. People can have time to relax and set. So I think it'd be a win-win situation for us to continue our support with the campus and the city to have it out here, sir. So we're all excited about it. Sorry the city manager couldn't make it. He had another meeting to go to in the state, but we're here in support of this issue. So we're there for you all the way. We work with you. So that's my
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions for us, or?
Gary, like to say something? Shaw?
You said no earlier.
Why don't you usually want to say
Other
something?
than the fact that I'm old enough to remember when it used to be here, and it was a great venue, and we're just excited. Anytime we can work with the university, I think it's a win-win for both of us, and we're just proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
Well, we're delighted to have council members come today and support. Thank you very much.
I'm old enough to have attended it.
Me too.
And I'll tell you, I don't believe, Alan, that 249 was done back then.
It was not.
So it's actually gonna be much easier to get in and out even now than it was then.
And our intentions are to have the fireworks over towards the baseball side, so people will be able to not just sit in their cars like they do, but instead they can sit in the stadium and enjoy it, and the flow will work very well that way, and kind of spread itself out. So I think this can be a great opportunity for us, and plus just having all the people here on campus during the day and have a great experience, it's going to go a long way. So.
And I know we've been talking, well, you all have been talking about the budget. This, just rest assured, we're the ones that pay for the fireworks. The city will be paying for the fireworks. We're working out details, but.
Who gets to sell the hot dogs?
Actually, we're handling
right there.
So is the concession stand open?
Yeah. That's never funny.
It's been there a long time. But no, we'll be doing the fireworks, we'll be doing the band and all the games, and Jared and his staff will be doing the concessions and the parking and the stadium. So it's going to be great. We look forward to it.
Any questions from anyone on this?
I just have to say I'm a pretty newcomer to Joplin, and I had been here just a few weeks, and everybody was pleasant and happy, and it was just nirvana until July 5th and went to the fireworks. I thought it was fine, but looking at the social media and the criticism, I'm like, oh, that's a different Joplin after these fireworks. So
yeah,
that was the only thing for months and months I heard anything negative about anything. So I think it's great. I think they're great out there at Schifferdecker. I think they'll be great here.
Yeah, we get ready to put our bid out for the 4th of July fireworks, and usually the person who wins, he puts on a great show. So it'll be choreographed music and whatnot. So,
would the board like to consider a vote of ratification on this?
I make such a motion.
Have a motion from Governor Franks. Is there a second?
Second.
Governor Ayler. Any further discussion? All those in favor of that indicate by saying aye. And opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Dr. Nicoletti, you want to tell us about
So if you recall last time, we were very proud to introduce those who did not know to the fact that we were the national home base for American Mock Trial Association. There are so many things about Missouri Southern, I think, that are just underknown and understated gems, and that is one of them. With all the mock trial teams all across the nation, this is the home base for all of them. And so I know many of you know and understand about mock trial, but that Nick is just sort of toward the end of his season and is our faculty advisor for mock trial and here with us anyway. I wanted to, I asked him if he would mind spending a few minutes talking about mock trial process, our mock trial team, what the students benefit and how they really see value and that, and again, sort of recognizing the relationship that Nick is the faculty sponsor of the Missouri Southern Mock Trial team is just one of many that is ultimately coordinated by an office like next door to Nick anyway. So I thank you for doing that in addition to everything else.
Sure, yeah, I'd be glad to speak about it. So Missouri Southern's mock trial team has been going strong for 6 years now. I've been the assistant coach of it for 4 years, and I was able to take the head coach position this year. And it's a really competitive sport, really, is what it is, because the students get this massive case packet from the American Mock Trial Association, and then they start to learn the role of the witnesses based on the affidavits in the packet, and they start to learn how to be an attorney and come up with opening statements and closing statements and direct examinations and cross examinations. And our students benefit from it so much. By the time they are done with mock trial and they're preparing most of them for law school, they know the federal rules of evidence and they know how to battle, on these things in a mock courtroom. And so it's really a fantastic program. This year, our students have competed in 3 tournaments so far. We are now going to be headed to UMKC for the regional playoffs. And every tournament we've been to, we've had students win an outstanding attorney award, an outstanding witness award. They came in 3rd place at the Northwest Missouri Mock Trial Tournament, which is really good for our team. They were 1 point and 1 ballot away from going to the semifinals in Oklahoma, being one of the top 4 teams. So, that was a really good experience for them, and I think they get a lot out of it. So we're really excited to continue mock trial on this campus, and hopefully, we get a bid to the opening round of the national championship. So wish us luck.
Couldn't find a hanging Chad on that ballot or anything?
Yeah, right. We have right now over 16 students, and you can only have 6 go as basically the team. So it's 3 attorneys and 3 witnesses, and so we can let up to 9 compete if you set the witnesses right. So we will be taking 9 participants to regionals.
How do you decide who goes?
It's competitive. It's really competitive. It's how they score at the past tournaments. We have a lot of award winners that would definitely be on the roster, and then we look at the scores and we look at the comments, and it's very much like a sport, really.
Sounds like track.
They're really competitive, the students.
Challenge
too.
for hurdles.
And are they all pre-law majors then?
Actually, we have students from all over campus. We have business majors, criminal justice majors, political science majors, international business majors, and a lot of them do want to go to law school. And so, I've been doing a lot of LSAT and LSAC advising over the last few months. So they're really excited.
How interesting. Very, very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. Is there any other item to come before the board? You see listed there on your agenda the future meeting dates. Hearing of no other business. Alan, did you have anything else? Hearing no other business, I would entertain.
I didn't put this on my agenda because really, quite frankly, it came from the printer maybe 15 minutes before we started today. But I'm very pleased to share with you all our 2017 Focus on Faculty, which is our research publication. This is where we really very much focus on faculty contributions and scholarship, intellectual developments, things in sort of the research of the triad. So the biggest issue ever. We continue to grow it. More faculty ever have participated in significant scholarly activities. I thank Dr. McGrain for compiling it, but we're going to print. I was very excited because Cassie said it's almost like a magazine, and for us to be where we were to almost like a magazine is a huge accomplishment. So I thank the faculty for their contributions, for their effort, for their responsibility. I thank the whole campus for supporting this enterprise.
Thank you. Before I ask for a motion to adjourn, I do have one comment I want to make, and I want to address it to the faculty, I want to address it to the staff and administration. I appreciate, on behalf of the board, all the work and effort everybody is putting into this institution. I truly do. It's very obvious. We have some challenges ahead of us. We talked about them today, and they're yet to be solved, but they will be solved. And please pass that along to your senates. I very much do appreciate, this board very much appreciates it, so please pass that. That being said, Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn. Governor Plotnick?
Second.
Second, Governor Flanagan. All those in favor, indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Which one am I for timetable? Have a good week.